So Paul, a couple of months ago, you left GRASSMEN HQ with said fast track on the 3160 VC Pro Impress, that's a mouthful. And you were really unsure of how a built baler would do in Ireland, but you were determined to get it out and do a few demos. You took it all the way down to Wexford, I do believe. Wexford, Waterford. It's made its way back up here. We're in the back end of August now, heading into almost September. How has the baler performed? Because Ireland is only known for the fixed chamber baler.
A lot to ask there in one question, Gareth, to be honest, but absolutely you're right. Like, we were a little anxious. We had good information from colleagues how well this machine performed in similar areas across Europe. So until we tried it ourselves, of course, we were anxious. And to be honest, yeah, brought it straight home. We tried it in a really wet field in the rain behind closed doors. Of course, you're not going to do this in front of a customer, and we had immediate confidence out of the box. We touched nothing, put a roll of film in, and we made a bale in the rain. So that has given us the confidence to move forward with the demos, in which we did. And like you say, it's been a funny year for weather. Like you talked about the fixed chamber baler, and it's been strange that the fixed chamber baler has actually struggled this year in straw conditions. It's been so dry that they weren't able to turn. So immediately we had an advantage already in straw just lately with this machine. So it's funny maybe how the weather patterns have changed, how machines are required to work in Ireland.
Well, like what you're saying there, Paul, about the wet bale, I can concur to that, because I was just looking there before you come up, and I still have the video that you sent me on WhatsApp of you pushing your hand in against the bale and the water running down. But obviously when you're picking up wet bales, quite often conditions are wet. So can this baler cope with that? What's been your thoughts there? Granted, this has been a dry year.
No, I agree, and that sort of grass can get in everywhere and cause issues, of course. Starting with the pickup, it's the first area where you can be let down in those conditions, and that's what we really like about this baler, is what we call the lift-up rotor system. So the grass is coming in over, it's a cam, pick up with a cam, like all Pottinger machines, and the grass then comes in over the rotor, and it's a straight shot then into the chamber. So that really helps with the starting of the bale. We've 4 starter rollers, but the grass has not been thrown into the center of the chamber or anything like that. It's been put in at the bottom and pushing the bale around. So we have no issues starting the bale, and when you have no issues with the crop flow, it generally stops any issues out front, because there's no build-up. It's continuous. So no, we've had a really positive, but we knew that from the fixed chamber anyway, from the front end was really positive. And yeah, we were really satisfied there, to be honest.
Are you telling me that with this baler, with the 4 starter rollers, it's dropped the bale off as you were?
Absolutely. And that was one thing I was conscious of, to have no preconception of any machine you used before. We wanted people just to get in, drive. Same when you're tying the bale, not to try maybe inch forward, all this kind of things that you had to do maybe with other brands, models and generations of technology. We just wanted people to get in, drive, stop, tie, unload, go again, which is what we did. And in the demos we had to force people, because by habit they're doing these things. We had to say, no, you don't need to do that anymore.
Well, I mean, I can tell you here and now, I haven't drove this baler yet. I say yet, hopefully we'll get a chance. But that would have been the first thing I'd have been thinking of just really easing in until we get going and then going, because I'd just be thinking of my previous experience, and then equally watching and learning with all the balers putting on the film, of just that, using the momentum of the grass to get it to feed through. So that's going to be an issue. So you're just saying, drive as you are, stop, get rid, go.
Absolutely, and that was one of the harder things in the demos, to get people to do that. And we are putting the net on, or the film on, quite fast, because of the pre-bale signal. So when our bale is nearly complete, our net is already moving in to 90% of the distance towards the bale. So as soon as we get the full bale signal, we're literally tying it. So you have to be kind of alert to that. If you weren't stopping in time, you're getting a little bit more in. which is not a problem with a belt baler because you have the room to take it anyway. With the fixed chamber, when you're getting full, you really have to be on the ball.
Now, obviously we've looked at, you know, some of the balers, and I mean we've had, I can't remember the number off the top of my head now, but we've had the standard fixed chamber baler without a wrapper here. We've had a look at the knife system. We've talked about the up and over and all of that feeding into it. Is all of that, you have kept that the same in all of your balers?
Absolutely, and it's a patented system to pull out like this, but like this is a secondary feature to be able to pull the knives out like this. The main reason is crop flow. It's to keep the straight flow into the chamber. And then the secondary benefit is to be able to have the knives on top. That allows, of course, gravity, any losses, any build-up is falling back down into the flow. You know, when they're underneath, it's all falling and building up on top of them, so they're staying quite clean themselves. And second is the service point of view. You pull them out, they're double-sided, so you can pick them up and turn them around and go again. So yeah, we won't be changing from that system. I think it's really an eye catcher for anyone with balers, and yeah.
But now the fixed chamber versus the variable chamber belt style baler, that's the big question here. Where are you at now, Mr. Pottinger Paul?
Like from a user point of view, for me it's a no-brainer. Like the ability of this baler in certain conditions to make a solid bale from the centre, and not just our belt baler but belt balers in general. I think the bale quality is definitely a plus, for sure. The big question is, can you get paid for that? Can a contractor benefit from that? And it's going to happen. So what we have now coming on this machine is she will weigh the bale at the back end, and we would like to see in the future in Ireland, it's in other countries, being paid per kilo. Then you have the benefit of making a heavier bale, of trying to make less bales, you know, and you have less plastic involved, less handling. And with a belt baler you have that capacity, but until contractors maybe change how they're charging, this is the game at the moment.
Well, what size of bales can you make here? Like what can this variable chamber baler produce us? What's a standard bale, do you reckon, in Ireland?
Well, it's 4 foot is and you know, when you make a 4 foot bale with this one, when you're solid core from the center, it's solid from the center. You can feel the difference, you know, and that's just with any belt baler. But this one goes up to 1.55 meters, which is, I think, a little under 6 foot, 5 foot something, and down to 0.8 of a meter.
Huh?
Now,
what's that? 3 foot.
And she's able to wrap them as well. I know. I mean, I don't know who would really wanted that size.
Horsey people.
Horsey people, you know, roll it in and out.
Yeah.
And she can still wrap those size bales as well, which is also to talk about. Because, you know, with changing diameter, it's you have to pay attention on the back that you can wrap them.
What's the biggest bale you've made this year?
I didn't make it personally, but we had a customer and he maybe didn't hear the beeps and suddenly had a 7 foot bale. And she wouldn't wrap it. She knew it was 7 foot, and she knew she'd damage herself, so she had to let it out unwrapped. But that's another thing I learned. When you're rolling out a bale from one of these, it just rolls out in a nice layer all the way to the center. When you have to remake a bale, it's not a big lump, but yeah, we made a 7 foot one by accident. What a tied it and stuff.
But how do we, you know, so what's the process? You know, I head off into the field, I've got my classroom tutorial done, I've read my manual, I want to make a big bale and a wee bale. Could I literally, without too much hassle, set out a 2.5 or whatever 0.8 meter bale is and have the next one out a 6 foot bale? Mm-hmm. How easy?
It's on presets, just dack. Not only the size, you can say you want the center of it to be less dense, maybe haylage or straw because of moisture or something, and you want it less dense in the center, so you can control how dense each section is as well as the size, and that's just done on a preset. I was nervous of that beforehand. It was new to me. It was the first really belt baler I used, and I'm not that experienced with baling also, but it came very, very fast.
One of the slight issues with the very first combi baler that I watched working of Pottinger was and we've talked about this before, you and I, was the bale transfer. It wasn't the wrapping. There was nothing wrong with the wrapping. It was, I felt there was too much time. I was kind of, you know, you're coming at me at the point that we're 90% loading that in, and I remember watching that on the net on the baler that we had. You could see it moving. I'm pretty sure we got GoPro footage of that moving, and then just when the bale was made, click, and then it went and the net was going. So you're making all that so fast and so, you know, almost perfect. Feed was good, fast at netting, and then it felt like there was a bit of an Achilles heel getting it up, getting the bale shot out, getting the door and getting it to wrapping. But a birdie tells me it is a lot faster now. Is that just a birdie or is that fact?
No, you're correct. It is faster. We have, first of all, you're dead right, because she's so fast to make a bale, and I know it's easy for me to say that, but the intake is quite impressive on this, and that's where it got the name. So then it's very easy to show up the wrapper, because it's easy to outperform, I think, any wrapper or transfer system, and that's why you maybe always see it. But we have improved it, and you also have to take care that it's working in all conditions, not just on a flat field. So we have a slope sensor on this one, so if you're going down a slope, the table responds differently to accepting the bale, or if you're on a cross slope, it's measuring that and it's adjusting the transfer accordingly. So like you could have a really fast transfer that's throwing it out, and maybe then you miss a bale and suddenly you've lost 20-30 minutes sorting out a mess, whereas this, we have a constant transfer in a lot of tricky situations.
Yeah. So what you're actually saying is it's not that it maybe give the impression that it was slow, but if you've made the front so good, you know, yeah, I get what you're saying, because you could in theory slow that all down and make it all feel like it's just running smoother, but you think
hands
it's
up, you generally drive this baler to the limit of the wrapper, not the baler, in any conditions, even silage,
that you've
whatever.
seen so far.
Yeah.
It's wide, Paul. It is wide.
This is my fault. I have to put my hand up. Sure, you look, when you bring something in like this, you want to make an impression, and we had this option of these wide tires, and I was saying, yeah, we were going demoing and we wanted to stand out, which we kind of did, but it is wide. We like to give ourselves grief going around the place, but these aren't the standard tires. There's a 710, it's a wider tire again, but the machine doesn't get any wider. But the normal tires are 520s, which brings it into the 2.9 meters like most machines. This one's a little wider than that.
Applying the plastic instead of the netting, is it one in, one out, or how does that work, or is it easy to change between film and plastic? Or
it's a good question, and like it's held in the very same place, the roll of film or the roll of plastic. It's just how you insert it in to the mechanism that changes. There is another option too for a second holder, that you could have a roll of net or a roll of plastic in, and then from the cab you can change between.
You could swap.
You can swap. Yeah, it's a nice feature for someone who's doing different things on a daily basis, maybe this time of year in straw and silage, and wants to just swap. But that is an option. It's not on this one, but yeah.
And setting up the net and the wrapping and all again from the computer screen in the tractor, no problem. How many times? All.
Absolutely. How many times, and a net break, and that's it. You know, and it's saved. Once you change the plastic, it automatically goes back to those settings.
So the ultimate question I have, I'm a contractor. I bale 15,000 bales a year. I bale, so that's a lot of bales. I bale on mountainsides, I bale in wetlands, I bale in good land, I bale in wet conditions, I bale in lovely conditions. The standard Irish contractor. I'm standing before you around the table and I'm saying, Paul, I'm giving you the choice here. Do I go fixed chamber or do I go variable chamber?
Well, if it's me, definitely the variable. I just think the quality of the bale is from that technology is just worth it every time. I think the ability to change it to whatever you want, you know, in density and size, it's an amazing feature. And the reliability in all conditions, like who would have thought that a fixed chamber baler would have been a disadvantage in Ireland than it was this summer for making straw, for example. And yeah, so for me, it's I like it. And even I know when you're with the fixed chamber and you're in tough conditions and you're getting your full and you're towards the end, and that's where your heart is going to be broken. And with the belt baler, you always have that little bit of luxury that if you swallow a lump when the bale is nearly full, there's room for it. So from that point of view, for me, yeah, it would be hard to go back. When money is not an object, the belt baler for me is the one.
I suppose this is the next question sitting around the table. Is it a big percentage more in price?
It's a relative percentage more, I think. And ultimately that comes to the customer himself, you know, can he justify it? Can he? And I think most will, especially I think plastic and all this, unfortunately, it's just a hot topic and it's only going one way. And if we can reduce the amount of plastics and reduce the amount of handling and transport, it's only going to be a positive, you know, and we can promote and improve our environmental situation with such a case. And I think that's important going forward, that we're seen to be doing things a little different, because we're getting a bad name enough in this industry. You know it.
Yeah, but we still have a job to do. We at GRASSMEN believe we have a job to do in encouraging and supporting our farmers, and the farmers have a job to do in feeding the world. And as far as we're concerned, that'll never change. Of course, as Michael Hoy once said to me, if everybody can leave the world a slightly better place than they found it, then we're doing okay. And of course we have to care about the environment, but we have to have fun too, and we have to get the job done. And equally, you have to make a few quid or it doesn't work. You know, what kind of horsepower do we need?
Yeah, well, I mean, in straw and good conditions, under 200 is plenty. But if you're chopping with 32 knives, you're making a bale that's 1.1, 1.2 tons, one of them on the back as well, you're into something like this, to be honest, 220, 240 to be comfortable. Yeah. Well,
look, Paul, thank you. And it's nice to see the Hornet back again. The yard was missing.
We took
but anyway, thank you. Good luck.
Yeah. Thanks, Gareth.